All right, thank you. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Finance Committee of October 26, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. First item on the agenda is approval of minutes. 2A, draft minutes of October 5th and 6th, 2021, department head budget presentations to finance. Do I have a motion?
That noise is just the radio station. It comes in on our frequency every once in a while. So pretend like it's not there.
Imagine if you could buy a stock that tripled your money, guaranteed.
My mic is on.
Don't pass the bipartisan.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead and do your motion and then
All right, motion to approve.
So move.
Okay, discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Item 2B, draft minutes of October 12th, 2021, Finance Committee meeting.
I move approval.
Very good. We have a motion. Is there discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Item 3, public appearances, non-agenda items. We have no one in chambers or on Zoom. Okay, very good. Thank you. Moving on. Item 4, Finance Director Report. Treasurer's Report as of September 30th, 2021. I'll turn it over to Misty. Judge.
Thank you. So included in the packet is the September Treasurer's Report. As of the end of September, tax settlement would have been cleared out. So you can see all of that was kind of off the books at that point. One other thing that I wanted to point out to the committee is on the WISC PMA page, which is page 15 of the packet, we did invest in a new investment vehicle this time. It's a new, I guess it's a series, kind of like it's like a money market, but not exactly, that's available for extended terms. So it's designed for money that you don't need to touch for 3 to 10 years. We invested $250,000 in that new product, which is the same as what we would invest in a CD, just to kind of see how things go. And then at the end of the Treasurer's Report, I included the flyer page for you guys so you could see kind of the highlights of what that new investment offering does. So it's a way to get a little bit more interest, hopefully, because we are going to go out longer on the curve versus a lot of the other stuff is much shorter. So wanted to point that out. I'm also invested in 2 more treasuries that we talked about last time, and then got another CD. So interest rates are still very low. They're starting to pick up a little bit. I invested in a little bit more this last week where it's ticked up a bit, but still quite a bit lower than pre-COVID times. So that's the Treasurer's Report. Maybe pause here to see if there's questions on that.
Yes, Gabriella, go ahead.
Thank you. Misty, pages 19 and 20 of the packet, but 10 and 11 of the report, it's the Supplemental Expenditure Report. It's super interesting, and I think it's relatively new if I'm not mistaken, but is it possible to get numbers for previous years, or is this a new report that just kind of starts with this year's reporting?
Those reports have been in all of the Treasurer reports, so it's not something new, but I can add prior year numbers to that, absolutely. Do you want year to date, or do you want prior year total year numbers?
I guess it would be interesting, I guess it'd be interesting on a full yearly basis, rather than, I think, the year to date. I don't think you need to make a change, but I was just wondering if it's possible to pull that report for like a series of years going back. I think it'd be an interesting way to look at the budget in the future. So, good to know. We can pull that in.
So but provide a supplemental report, maybe just to the committee, to let you guys see what that would be over 3 years?
I think it would be fascinating, but I also don't think it's 100% necessary, and I know you have a lot on your plate, so.
Okay. We'll add it to the list. Other than that, so the next council meeting, or the next Finance Committee meeting on November 9th, Council will possibly start early because of the budget adoption that happens that night. If so, we might end up moving up Finance Committee as well, depending on the agenda. So just want to kind of give everybody a heads up that we may do that meeting early. Tomorrow evening is the Committee of the Whole, starts at 6 p.m. That's where we will talk about all of the budget amendments. And then we did have our Moody's presentation last week, which went really well. We'll get our rating next week. We have a call scheduled with them. All indications that they will probably affirm our current rating, but it's still nice to get that phone call to get that confirmation. So things are going well.
Very good. Is there any further questions from the committee? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item 5. Review of bills. Item 5A, detailed review of checks for $10,000 and above for the period of October 1st to the 15th, 2021, totaling $2,772,410.51. Discussion. Hearing none, we'll move on to 5B, detailed review of all checks issued. Checks 122613 through 122685, October 1st through the 15th, 2021, totaling $2,856,326.72. Are there questions, discussion? Yes, Alder Gerhardt, you have the floor.
Thank you. I've got a couple questions. The first is on page 49 of the packet, page 2 of this report. I'm curious about the Canine Adventure Course. I assume that that's some sort of rec program, but it was kind of a delightful thing to read on the expense report.
Exactly right. So it's a rec program. So we collect participant fees, and then we remit 80% of what we collect back to the Pack Up Puppy LLC independent contractor.
Awesome. And then second question is for page 53 of the packet, page 6 of the section. It's the splash pad chemicals at the very bottom. Is that a charge that we pay monthly, like over the course of the full year, or why are we having that expense come through in October?
So this was probably an earlier invoice. I can pull it up to find out when we received those chemicals, but it is chemicals that I believe that we hold on site in order to service the splash pad. But I can get additional details and send that out.
It looks like Scott is on. Is he?
It is seasonal. Basically, it's chemicals that are injected into the water to balance it. But as Misty indicated, it is seasonal, so I suspect it was an earlier bill, but that is a seasonal splash pad type of expense.
I would be curious to see that as well. Seems like we had this already in the spring, unless time goes by so fast. I mean, we've had this discussion. So, was there a shortage as well, or was that maybe another issue that I'm thinking of on chemicals? No?
I don't remember a shortage. It wouldn't surprise me if we did have another bill that we paid, though, because we would pay it kind of throughout the season.
Right.
Not necessarily.
So
just
if it's
all at one
seasonal,
time.
it's not just a one-time invoice.
No.
Right, but it's
And
during a season, yes,
Okay.
that we could be paying it.
Very good.
But I'll pull the invoice and email it out to everybody.
Okay. Additional questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to 5C, detailed review of P-card transactions for $10,000 and above for the cycle ending September 6, 2021. Total, $122,626.37. Discussion from the committee. Seeing none, moving on to 5D, review of P-card transactions for the cycle ending September 6, 2021. Total, $243,959.95. Is there discussion from the committee? Hearing none, we'll move on. Action items 6A, Resolution R-178-21 to approve inclusive playground common earthwork direct referral. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Alder Wheeler. Is there discussion, or we should turn it over to City? Scott?
Sure.
You have the floor.
This is earthwork. What we need to do is we need to get the inclusive playground site at a correct elevation in order to install the playground. So this is the work that a contractor is going to do for us to level that earth to get it to the correct elevation. And maybe just as a additional information, there are other steps that we're going to be needing to go through in the future here regarding this project. So you'll be seeing those in the future, including poured in place surfacing. We've also have some flat work that's going to go around the playground itself, some split rail fence, along with some paths that are going to be connecting the inclusive playground to the splash pad. So this is just the first of several items that'll be coming before the Finance and the Common Council.
Very good. Discussion.
Scott, all the things you just mentioned, that will be done by city workers?
Well, actually, we're working on that. The poured in place, Alder Wheeler, that is going to be done by a contractor. And actually, this earthwork is going to be a combination of the city staff are going to be bringing the fill, and then the contractor is going to be leveling the fill.
Thanks.
Maybe another quick note. The Optimist Club, they're going to be at this point they're going to be making a contribution to pay for the poured in place surfacing. So we'll make sure that we get those funds in the city before we approve that work.
Okay, very good. Any other additional discussions? All right. Seeing none, we'll place it to a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, the ayes have it. Motion carries. Moving on to 6B, Resolution R-190-21, set 2022 solid waste rates, direct referral. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Alder Gerhart, and who will speak to this evening?
I'd like to just kick this one off, if I may.
Okay, very good.
First, for some background. So the refuse and recycling services that the city provides, or that we contract out to provide, is paid for through a special charge on everybody's property tax bill. So it shows up in that bottom right corner. It's not part of the property tax levy. Every year, once the budget is pretty much established and ready to go, the staff brings forward a recommendation or a proposal for what that rate should be in order to balance the budget. So the rate that was included in the mayor's proposed budget is the $220 per unit, which is a 5.3% increase from last year. This rate does use fund balance to basically buy down that rate. So they're still not paying the full cost that the city is paying to provide all of that services, but I feel comfortable using that amount of fund balance. The reason why is the city's policy for general fund, which is the same policy we use for this fund, is that we set aside 1 year worth of state aid, and then it's between 15 and 25% is what we should have as our fund balance. If you fall less than that policy, you should have a mechanism in place to build that back up to, say, the 15%. If you're over that policy, best practice would be you could utilize that amount that you're over the policy towards one-time things. So the amount that's over the policy, over the 25%, I feel comfortable using, and it matches more or less to kind of that one-time capital stuff that was included in the budget. So that's why this amount in particular was recommended by myself and is included in the mayor's budget. I know Board of Public Works met on this, as did RCC. They actually both recommended a different rate at the $215 amount. So that could be something to consider as well. Ultimately, council gets to set that amount. And then one of the omnibus amendments that I have for the 2022 budget would be to adjust the budget if you do set a rate that's different than what was proposed.
Okay, very good. Let's turn it over to the committee for discussion.
So Misty, what percentage would we be at then for the fund balance at 215 instead of 220?
Yep, so we'd be at 23.5%. So it is still at the top of the range that we set. However, best practice would be just the amount that's over the policy is what you would use. And then I'd also like to keep in mind that using fund balance is a bit of a slippery slope. At some point, we won't have that fund balance available, so there'll be a future increase that will need to be absorbed.
Alder Gerhart, go ahead.
Thank you. So I actually had to miss the RCC meeting where they amended it to bring the rates down, but I was able to watch it and then also watch the Board of Public Works meeting. So I've had a chance to kind of think about this quite a bit. I do think that no matter what we do, we could certainly bring it down to $219, which is $1 lower, and that would still keep us above the 25% highest mark for the fund balance, just as a note there. But in terms of bringing it down to 215 as an option, so let me start with the question to Misty. Misty, the best use of a fund balance would be for one-time expenses and not ongoing operating costs. Is that right?
Correct. And so there is some one-time capital purchases in the budget for 2022.
Yeah. So I was just doing some quick calculations. So to go from 220 to 215, we would basically have to dip further into the fund balance by $29,375, according to that calculation provided in the packet. And we basically have a $15,000 license plate recognition in the recycling budget and a $21,000, compost screener in there as well. So that is pretty close to the exact same amount. And those are both one-time expenses. On top of that, the license plate recognition also has the possibility of reducing our costs, because if we keep out people that shouldn't be using the facility, theoretically our costs could go down, potentially make a little bit of money back in if we do end up finding people for those. But anyway, I just wanted to make the note that there are two, big one-time expenses in the budget that might justify that reduction and doesn't represent kind of an ongoing cost to the recycling and refuse budget.
Misty, go ahead.
Yep, and so those two pieces were exactly how I rationalized using the fund balance even at that 220 amount. And you're right, the 219 would keep us above the policy as well, but is a little bit more than what those two one-times were. So I know we're getting into relatively small dollar amounts, but just want to make sure it's, clear why I recommended the one that I did.
No, that's helpful. Thank you.
Additional discussion. Okay. So, I'm sorry, did I hear?
Do I have a question? I have a question. Do either of the other alders, do you have an interest in talking about a reduction officially through an amendment, or do both of you kind of feel that the 220 is the right level?
At this point in time, I feel comfortable with the 220, of where it's at. I'm not sure where Alder Wheeler stands, but.
Well, after listening to the conversation, for consistency's sake, you kind of got me with, we need to stay above that 25%, and we will be going down the slippery slope. I feel comfortable going with 220 right now.
Okay, very good. I don't know. Alder Gerhart?
I mean, I prefer to go down, but I'm not going to put it forward to an amendment if I know it's for sure going to pass. But I'm leaning towards, I'm probably going to vote no, just because I do think it should go down a little bit.
Okay. All right.
So you're talking 219 that you're looking at?
I mean, I think it should go down lower than 219, but I hope that the council might at least consider the 219, just because I know it's minimal, but you know, the residents are going to see significant increased cost to their sewer rates, which we obviously don't control. But the perception, I think, from the residents will be a significant interest in utility rates going into next year, no matter what we do. So I do think there's some value in trying to minimize our utility rate increases for the coming year. Yeah. So I mean, if it were up to me, I mean, I would motion to move it down to 215 and see what the council thinks. But it sounds like there's no interest in the finance committee, so.
Well, and just to follow up on that, you had mentioned, Misty, that if we do not, I guess the question is, if we reduce it this year, the following year, though, we will have to make up for. Did I interpret that correctly?
So if you use fund balance just for the amount that are those one-time things,
Right.
and there's nothing new one-time that comes to make up, to kind of fill that hole, then you wouldn't need to. If you go below that and costs go up, for example,
Right.
or if there's another one-time project that comes in, that could be different. So it's hard to predict at this point. I don't
Sure.
know what necessarily is in the future for the 2023 budget for refuse. But it is a relatively small percent. And then if I could clarify one thing too, so this is on the property tax bill, not on the utility bill, is where this particular charge goes.
Right.
That's very helpful. Can I?
Yes, go ahead, Alder Gerhart.
Thank you.
You have the floor. Mhm.
Sorry, I'm trying to collect my thoughts. No, never mind. Sorry.
Okay, all right.
I just remembered. I'm sorry.
You still have the floor.
The Pelletier contract, we recently re-signed that. I thought the Pelletier contract is at least a 5-year contract, where the rates stay consistent. Missy, I'm not sure if you know the answer to that, but my understanding was we signed it either last year or this year for a 5-year rate.
That is true. I don't recall what the increases are each year. I'm sure there's something. My comments were more about those capital costs. So the license plate camera and this compost screener weren't in the CIP, so I didn't necessarily know to plan for them. There may be other things like that are needed. I'm not certain. But yes, and I will say honestly, from a finance perspective, there's kind of best practice, and then there's what you may choose to do. I wouldn't say I have a ton of heartburn over going to a lower rate, but still wanted to present what was based on best practice.
And that's what you're presenting, best practice.
Is the 220, yeah.
Correct.
But there is flexibility if you so choose.
All right, well, additional discussion. Hearing none, we'll place it to the motion to a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
I'm going to go aye.
Okay. Motion carries. I should say the ayes have it, motion carries. Okay, let's moving on to item 6C, Resolution R-191-21, approving Fitchburg becoming a Tier B direct recipient of 85.20 Transit Operating Assistance. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Motion made by Alder Wheeler. And who will be speaking to this? Andrew? I see Andrew stepping up. Floor is yours, Andrew.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Yep. The city of Fitchburg currently gets our transit assistance as a pass-through through Metro Transit. So they receive Tier 1 Tier A2 funding from the state as kind of a fixed amount. And they allocate a proportion of that based upon our service hours as a partner. So what a couple agencies are currently doing, Sun Prairie and Verona, having joined a little bit later, started a kind of a different arrangement. They directly apply to the state for urban mass transit assistance and as a Tier B city and receive reimbursements from WSDOT for that. And so what this resolution would do would be to tell staff to ready materials in order to apply to the state for direct transit assistance for 2022 and then in perpetuity. And so in doing so, there's a few kind of pros and cons. The main pro is that we'd be looking at something like $25,000 to $70,000 per year savings, and that's basically just because we get a better percentage or a higher percentage of operating assistance as a Tier B city versus a Tier A2 city. And then on the con side would be that we that staff would there'd be more staff time in readying those materials and providing applications to the state annually, as well as an additional cost to basically, if we ever want to increase our service hours and our cost, we would, just based upon how a potential arrangement with Metro would work out, we would have to increase our escrow amount in a larger way. But that's a kind of a subtle point, but I just want to raise it. And additionally, I guess the only other nuance would be that we will, instead of just basically getting a net credit on our bill from Metro, we will have to anticipate our service hours and cost in the fall before each year. I guess the only other benefit would be that if we pursue any other independent transit service through other entities, either directly ran or through independent contractors outside of Metro, we could also get that covered with state assistance under this new arrangement. So, are there any questions?
I don't know. I'll turn it over to the committee. Discussion? Alder Gerhart, you have the floor.
I just wanted to note that the Transportation and Transit Committee did pass this, and in my opinion, my personal opinion is that I think this is a really good change, and I think it's good all around, because ultimately, and I would say that even Madison Metro agrees that this is a good change. It benefits the system as a regionally, and it benefits us in particular because of that increased costs. And as Andrew said, with the upcoming renewal of the contract with Metro, there may be some reduction in that. It might get complicated, but either way, and Andrew, can you confirm this? Either way, we're going to come out ahead. We're going to have significant cost savings as a result of changing to this Tier B direct state funding. So I support this.
Very good, and I'm going to echo those same comments. Alder Wheeler, any additional? Okay, all right. Since there's no further discussion, I will place the motion before us to a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, the ayes have it. The motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, moving on to item 6D. Resolution R-192-21, approving the relocation order and TPP related to construction of Lacey Road from Fitchburg Road to the Badger State Trail. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Motion made by Alder Wheeler. And who is speaking to this evening? Are we back to Andrew? Okay. The floor is yours.
I'll just take the next few, if that's okay. Yeah, so this is just the transportation project plat associated with the West Lacey reconstruction. Basically, it outlines the interest needed for the roadway project in terms of temporary easements just for grading or permanent easements for fee areas for new paths, in addition to permanent limited easements for stormwater and path facilities. So I'm happy to answer any questions about any specific parcels, but otherwise, this is kind of bringing back the 60% design, and based upon those grading limits, these are really the areas that we'll need for the project.
Very good. Questions from the committee? Alder Gerhart, you have the floor.
I just want to note too that we discussed this at Transmission and Transit and we passed it. And I also, Andrew went into some detail about the actual maps, and there was some, for the people that are interested in this project that were concerned about the environmental impacts and the tree impact, there was some concern paid to adjusting the multi-use path slightly to potentially save some of those old growth trees. So just wanted to let everyone know that that is being considered as part of this, and trying to save as many trees as possible.
Very good. Additional questions? Hearing none, we'll place the motion before us to a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it, the motion carries. Moving on to the next item, 6E. Resolution R-194-21, authorizing approval of the Second Amendment to the Fiber License Agreement with Supranet Communications. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Alder Gerhart. Andrew, are you speaking to this one as well? Yep. Okay, the floor is yours.
So the city installed 3 fiber conduits along our Fish Hatchery Road project as part of our reconstruction project. In one of those conduits, Supranet has placed fiber optic, 144 count fiber optic from basically the city limits at Greenway Cross down to Traceway. They did that as part of the construction this year. And that was kind of previously arranged, and it was really a win-win for both parties. We get our signal interconnect so that Madison can control our signals remotely. So we get that license to those to 12 fibers, and they get to use our conduit. We also installed 3 conduits the rest of the project from Traceway down to McKee. In this case, we will be paying Supranet to install 144 count fiber, of which we'll have access to 24 strands. And I'll note that the cost is higher than it previously was because we are paying for the construction of this, the actual, as a contractor. But I'll note that it is a cost savings compared to our currently contracted agreement with our fiber contractor on the Fish Hatchery Road. So again, from the city's perspective, this is really a win in terms of long-term maintenance because Supranet's agreeing to locate the fiber and conduit as well as maintain the fiber if there's any problems with it, and then we would be maintaining the city's conduit. So with that.
Very good. I'll open it up for discussion, and I'll start the first question. Currently we use 4 fibers, correct? I mean, that actually have light on them, traffic.
That's right.
Now, it's a 12 fiber, but we're increasing it to a 24 fiber. I should say 2 strands for a total of 24, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and then they will be solely dedicated for our purposes.
That's correct. And not necessarily just signal equipment. If future city uses arise, we could definitely allocate that.
Okay, and that was my next question. So it's not just strictly for signal use, we could use it for whatever other city purpose. But we have up to the maximum of the 2 strands, which is 24 fibers.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. I think that's all the questions I have. The committee, any questions? Okay. Seeing none, I'll place the motion before us to a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to the next action item, which is 6F, Resolution R-195-21, authorizing intersection of Lacey Road and Seminole Highway be controlled by a roundabout. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Motion made by Alder Wheeler, and Andrew, you're speaking to this one as well?
Yep.
All right, the floor is yours.
So this is a little bit of a revisit from a previous resolution that included both the design contract as well as the intersection control. We went back to the public to have a second public meeting for West Lacey as well as this intersection, just to make sure we got the latest feedback from the residents, to make sure we still understood what folks were interested in and concerned about. And so we did that. The results were fairly consistent. We received 12 responses in the survey indicating that a roundabout, overall, the sentiment was that a roundabout is the preferred option. The other options were traffic signal or to leave it as an always stop and just rebuild the intersection. And so really what we're here tonight for is just to receive approval from finance and the council to basically instruct our designer to continue with the roundabout option and take that to 60% design, where we can come back and talk, just like with West Lacey, for the transportation project plat. I will note, right now our budget is, we are over our current CIP budget with our kind of concept design estimate, but it's very high level, includes some stormwater facilities that we have separate budget items for, or separate pots of money for. So although, I can definitely walk through that a little bit more, I like to kind of caution that it's very preliminary right now. We'll have a better estimate at 60%.
Okay. Discussion from the committee. Okay. Hearing none, I will place a motion to a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Moving on to the next item, 6G, Resolution R-199-21, authorizing acceptance of the 2021 Uptown Improvements Streetlights bid. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Alder Gerhart. Before I turn it over for discussion, who will be, from city, will be speaking?
Bill is here to do this.
Bill. Welcome, Bill. The floor is yours.
Thank you. As part of the Uptown improvements for Central Park Place, Greenway Cross, or I'm sorry, not Greenway, Green Market Drive and East Sherrill Parkway, there's streetlights that need to be installed along those corridors. And these costs will be reassessed to the property owners adjacent to that, so it's a pass-through cost. This bid is for the installation of the streetlights that we purchased. We did that under a separate contract, and Nichols Electric was the low bidder, the only bidder for this project to install those streetlights.
Okay, very good. I will open it up for discussion. Questions? Alder Gerhart.
I remember this from a previous time we approved something like this, but we pay for it up front so we can get the warranty on it, and then we pass through the cost to the developers. Is that correct? So it's a net neutral cost for us in the end, but am I
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
Great, thanks.
Okay, further discussion. Hearing none, I'll place the motion to a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you, Bill. Moving on to 6H, Resolution R-200-21, authorizing the purchase of attorney services associated with America Multi-Cinema, AMC, versus City of Fitchburg for excessive tax assessment, case number 2021 CV002248. Do I have a motion from the committee?
So move.
Motion made by Alder Wheeler, and who from city?
I'll take
Misty?
this one.
All right.
So we have been served with an assessment claim lawsuit from AMC. Included in the packet is the pre-approval form. We're suggesting that we use the same attorney that helped us through the Board of Review process. This is kind of the niche that attorney is really good at. There is a total cost of about $120,000. Some of the parcels are in TID 6, some of them are not. So you'll see there's a split between TID and property taxes essentially to pay for the cost.
Okay, very good. Discussion from the committee? Alder Gerhart, go ahead, you have the floor.
So did this did go through the Board of Review process? Or did they just move right to a lawsuit? They didn't like the outcome of the Board of Review, is that?
Amy, are you there? Could you answer that?
Yeah.
Might as well take
so
advantage while they're here.
Nope, sorry, that's okay. They did go through Board of Review. During Board of Review, they requested a waiver. And so the board agreed to waive it directly to circuit court, is how that was decided. Did that answer what you were looking for?
Yeah, thanks. I might have more questions when we get, because we're gonna talk about this at council, so, but that's helpful.
Very good, thank you, Amy. Additional questions? Discussion? Hearing none, we will place the motion to a vote. Those in favor? Those in
Aye.
favor of the amendment that's currently in front of us signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to the next item, item 6I, Resolution R-202-21, authorization to approve fire headquarters flooring contract and direct referral. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All right, motion made by Alder Gerhart, and I believe Chief Pulvermacher is going to be speaking to this resolution. Go ahead, you have the floor, Chief.
I am, thank you. I requested a direct referral to the Finance Committee and to the Common Council because of the fact that we had attempted to place this on the agenda for the last council meeting. There was a W-9 that had not been current, and we did not receive the W-9 in time to submit for the last meeting. So we attempted to initiate the vendor approval process, and because of the fact that that form was late for the consent agenda, we forwarded it to this meeting and asked for a direct referral, just so that we could stay on top of the on top of the timelines. You know, the reasons and the concerns for that, basically, we're looking at year end. There's holidays and so forth, so installation might become an issue, at least based on what the vendor had told us. There are some lead time issues with flooring supplies based on supply chain issues, and that's just become a little bit worse over the fourth quarter here. And then specific measurements, they won't do those until we actually have a signed agreement. So it's in our best interest to keep the process moving. We are recommending to go with the lowest bidder, that being Coyle. They are local, and the amount that they have with the potential of a $500 floor prep allowance is $7,790, and then the others came above that. So at this point, I would just pause in the case that you have any questions, but we are still under budget with this project, and we just want to keep it moving so that we can bring the project to resolution.
Very good. I always like to hear that it's under budget. Discussion from the committee. Okay, hearing none, I'll place the motion before us to vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Next item, 6J, Resolution R-205-21, 21, authorizing the redemption of general obligation community development bonds, Series 2011B, dated December 13th, 2011, direct referral. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Alder Wheeler, and Misty, I suspect you'll be speaking to this one?
Absolutely. So back in 2011, TID 4 issued some debt in order to pay for the interchange that was done. A variety of debt issuances, 2011 is one of them. Because that TID has been so successful and we're kind of on the stage now where we're winding it down, we have sufficient increment to prepay that debt. The first time that we're eligible to do that prepayment is December 1st of 2021, based on the terms at the time that it was issued. So this is our first opportunity to prepay it, and we'd like to take advantage of that. It's 6 years early. It'll save the TID about $300,000 in interest cost. And it's coming forward to you guys because the first step in kind of doing that is we have to provide notice to the people that lent us that money, that bought our bonds. I'll give them at least 30 days notice that we plan to do that. So hopefully it gets approved tonight. We'll send out the notice shortly, and then I'll be able to pay that off on December 1st. And this was all budgeted in the 2021 budget, so we're executing that original plan.
When will you be able to pay that off? I'm sorry, did you say December 1st?
December 1st, 2021.
Yep. Okay. All right, additional questions or discussion? Seeing none, place the motion before us to a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to item 6K. Resolution R-210-21, amending the 2021 general fund budget, change vacant asset assessment intern to new assessment technician, a direct referral. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Alder Gerhart. Discussion, city will speak to it first. Who is it Amy?
Amy, would you like me to start it?
Why don't you start it and I can answer additional questions? How's that sound?
Perfect. So included in the 2021 budget was an assessment intern. That position has been vacant for a while now. Included in the mayor's proposed 2022 budget was the conversion of that intern into a full-time assessment technician position. There are no council proposed amendments to change that position change. So we expect that will be approved in 2022's budget as is. So because of the different vacancies that have happened in assessing and the need to really start kicking into gear for this Town of Madison preparation, we're hoping that council will authorize that conversion early. Because the assessing intern has been vacant for so long, there is sufficient savings to pay for that full-time position for the extra month. And we'd really just like to be able to fill it as soon as we can. So hopefully this gets approved tonight. We'll be able to post it right away and then hopefully get somebody in the door to help the assessing department out.
Okay, very good. Amy, would you like to elaborate, or would you just want to answer any questions that the committee may have?
I can just answer questions if you have them.
Okay.
We just had, as you know, a lot of vacancies within our department, and we're having a hard time filling those. So there are potential candidates right now for this level, and our residential position is still vacant at this moment. We have not been able to fill that with a qualified candidate. So we're really short-staffed, and we thought if we could pull this person in, that would assist us, at least having someone to assist us with some work in our office at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions, discussion from the committee?
Well, I think it's a good use of salary savings, so.
Yeah, would agree. Okay. All right, no further discussion. I'll place the motion before us to a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Let's see, moving on to item 7, announcements. Next meeting is November 9th, 2021. And that leaves us with adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Motion made by Alder Wheeler. We are adjourned
You have to take a vote.
Oh, one moment then. I'm sorry.
You have to vote on it.
I'm sorry, got so far. All right.
You're so excited.
Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All right, motion carries. We are adjourned, 6:20 PM.